Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. What's up, y'all? Today, I want to talk about flight planning. I will show you how I planned this flight and how it turned out in reality. When I ask most glider pilots, what's the plan for today? They usually reply, I'm flying the weather, or some other cheeky response that means they didn't make a plan. That might work well for some folks, but not for me. The first thing I want to know is where I should start. I'm willing to drive a few hours in any direction for a decent flight. When I look at the weather, I consider a large portion of California. For thermal flights, I first look at soaring height and cloud base in the middle of the day on a very broad scale. For March 9th, it seems like south is going to be better than north. The closest viable site is Avenal, and it looks like there will be clouds and thermals high enough to do something interesting. Next, I want to know how long the flight should be. This means estimating the earliest possible release time and the latest possible final glide time. Here it looks like we will have early wispies at 11:30 a.m. with bases about 4,500 feet over the local hills. The final climb is similar, but can usually be farther away than the release. I scrub through the time window looking for the time when the heights are rapidly going to zero. I'm looking for the latest possible time with the farthest possible distance I can do a final glide from the displayed height. Now we have start and end times and positions, but what about the rest of the task? Here it looks like we will have about 5 hours of soaring. I'll be optimistic and hope for 90 kilometers per hour, so 450 kilometers. I know the convergence is going to be along the temblors, so I'll make a yo-yo over top of them to get the distance. The task is set. The one thing that will stop me from executing a task is not knowing about the landout options along the way, so my planning also needs to include a review of the landouts in the area. I use Google Earth for this with the same term point database I will use in the air. The imagery is always a few years old, and so are the database comments, but I find it helpful to know all I can about my options. Finally, I want to know more details on the weather. It's not enough to rely on a single forecast, since it's guaranteed to be wrong in some degree. I want to know in what way and to what extent it might be wrong. For that, I check all the major weather models and select a few SKUTs to get the large-scale picture. Today, I see what they disagree most on is the upper-level moisture. I might see anything from hardly any high clouds to a solid overcast. This is concerning because it can really cut off the thermals. I've been caught out many times by high clouds passing through. This is the point where many glider pilots will decide not to make the drive. I think they must have other hobbies they like just as much as soaring. Luckily, I don't have that problem. I even enjoy getting up early and driving the trailer down the road with some coffee and music. I just go and hope for the best. How do you think things turned out in reality? Thankfully, the upper moisture is on the drier side of the predictions. I'm sure it will weaken things, but I see the first clouds over the mountains at 10 a.m., which is a good sign. The lift is indeed very weak. I hardly find a thermal above 2 knots, so I know 90 kilometers per hour is out of the question. The plan is already out the window, but I know how to improvise and modify it because I've planned. This is the meaning of the saying, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. I'm just going to shorten up the legs, maybe 70 kilometers per hour is reasonable, so I'll just cut the legs short by about 20%. I'll keep an eye on my ETA and make sure I'm on final glide before the thermals die.
2, 1.
In the end, I achieved 350 kilometers and just had a lot of fun exploring the early spring conditions with basic cross-country planning. All I did was estimate the start and end times, my average speed, and try to imagine what might go wrong. You can make planning as complicated as you like, but these basic factors easily cover most of the decision making. I hope this helps as we quickly come into soaring season, and I'll see you in the skies.